A very warm welcome to yet another informative segment of Solutions Barabarani. I'm your host, Agnes Maina. Now, as we all know, Kenya is a spectacularly beautiful, dynamic democracy with millions of people, determined to hit their targets in life. Talk of the infrastructure in our country. The roads have been well constructed. They are beautiful and passable at the same time. And I think there is no doubt about that. Now, the beautiful sceneries in our country are something to boast about. So basically, there's just a lot in our country to be happy and be optimistic about our country. But our country is wrestling with increasingly pressing challenges of insecurity, not only here in Nairobi, but also in other parts of our country like Nairobi and Mombasa. And also the recent case on Kapedo killings, where 22 police officers lost their lives. And I think this is a big loss to the police officers. Now, this and more stories concerning insecurity will be discussed right here on WTV. So stay tuned. The Republic of Kenya is one of the most developed and economically robust nations in Africa. The country's diverse natural landscapes and wildlife have contributed to its strong agricultural economy and helped make it a popular tourist destination. But despite having so much to celebrate, insecurity has been a barrier to our country's development. The recent killings of police officers by bandits in Kapedo, Turkana County was the second highest loss of police officers in history in a span of 2 years. The murder of the officers is made even more tragic by the fact that most of the slain officers were young, perhaps looking forward to long careers in police. Many cases of insecurity happen in the line of duty, be it border riders, police officers, or just a common mwananchi by cruel criminals. Nevertheless, security starts with us, you and me. Welcome. We continue discussing matters in security right here on Solutions Barabarani. But for any suggestions or comments concerning insecurity, please feel free to join in our conversation using the numbers on your screen. That is 20058. For now, we get to hear people's suggestions concerning insecurity.
Kitu ya kwanza, sisi vijana tunaumia sana. Na ndo unaona wengine wetu tumeamulia kufanya kazi ya bodaboda. Si ati ni vile wengine wetu hatukusoma ama nini, hapana, situation ndio inaruhusu. So kwa hivyo mambo ya insecurity sisi hapo watatusamea kidogo, sababu sisi tukibeba watu hataka kujua mtu ambeba nini, hataka kujua wewe ni nani, bora tupatie pesa yetu sisi tukufikishe penye unataka.
Kiangalia wale wa usalama saa hii inasoroteka sababu tunaona kama Northeastern watu wanauliwa, wrestling ya ng'ombe, tunarudi tunajiuliza security inafanya nini.
So ya Mombasa naye tulisikia vitu zinatendeka huko, lakini hatujafika huko, lakini tunasikia tu.
I think the biggest headache that the government has to deal with is how to make sure that we got, the common man on the street is secured. Look at the Nairobi streets. There are so many, I don't want to call them chokoras, street boys. There are so many young and employed people who are looking for something to do. For them, they're in employment because the government is not able to give them the correct employment. So they are doing what they know best.
Everyone around the world treasures security, but it rises and falls with time. For more in-depth understanding on just what has been driving insecurity in our country, we are joined by a security analyst, Dennis Nthumbi, after this short break. What's your take on insecurity, especially here in Nairobi, before we go to other parts of the country?
Thank you. Insecurity in Nairobi, basically when we talk about insecurity, then we broaden the scope of what insecurity is. But really, insecurity, you're looking at insecurity from various angles. You're looking at crime, which can include aspects of rape, homicide, including road traffic accidents and other things. Nairobi has always topped in terms of statistics. And crime in Nairobi is largely what it is that we call opportunistic crime, which is basically what it is that we see as carjackings, selected homicides, a lot of road traffic accidents and all that. But Nairobi has always been top in terms of statistics in the country. Yeah, so I think crime in Nairobi is mutating by and large as our lifestyle changes and all that, and proliferation of small arms. Is that there are a lot of small arms available, so you're seeing that it's easy to carry out carjackings. A lot of the middle class in this society, what it is that they're doing is that they're getting to buy vehicles and they have a lot of disposable income and all that. So yeah, crime in Nairobi is there.
What about in other parts of the country? We can talk about Kapedo, where 22 police officers lost their lives, and I believe this was a big loss to the police officers.
This is not just a crime to the police officers. This is a military fighting another military, and that's the way it needs to be seen. This is actually a specialized unit in the Pokot area that is fighting the state. And when you shoot down a police officer, you're actually, by and large, fighting the state, because the police officer is a representative of the state. So for me, that act of shooting down the police officers is a major act of fighting the state. And of course, the state needs to claim back that area. And it's by and large a very big show to show that the state is not in charge in that area, and that perhaps they don't even have stake. So for me, the Kapedo police killings is not just the killings of police officers. It's a sorry state of where our government is in terms of reclaiming various areas. And by and large, what it is that we call homegrown extremism, which there are parts of this country that the government hasn't taken up hold of in terms of security. And unfortunately that it's a reactive approach, whereby something heinous happens, then the state goes in to reclaim. And I think by and large, I don't see why the Pokot herders should have weapons by all means, and who's selling them these weapons and that are not licensed. So that is an act of violence against the state.
So according to you, what really has been driving this insecurity in those areas?
But the fact that the state has never been present to provide security. I mean, by all means, why would the reason why people would look after themselves and stock and pile arms and use them for other illicit activities is because the government is not present. And to be very honest, I think the government needs to come out very strongly and map this country, and even deploy, military officers who are sitting in the barracks not doing much. And if you by and large look at the history of that area, this has been something that has been happening. Sporadically, of course, but not just sporadically. If you visited those areas, you realize that you'll see very little government presence. And by and large, the shooting of police officers, which has happened in that area before, is actually an act of violence against the state. If you shoot down a police officer, you haven't shot down a police officer. You're actually an enemy of the state. You should be profiled the same as a terrorist. So by and large, yeah.
Since that happens, according to your take, has the security agency so far done something?
I think the act of the head of state, who is the commander-in-chief of the armed forces of Kenya, going down there by himself was, for me, an act of declaring war on whoever those militants are. And I think he was very categorical, and his mission statement was return the arms and the culprits. Because by the end of the day, if we don't get these culprits, you're still going to have this problem over and over and over again. By the end of the day, if you don't change the thinking of this community, who perhaps have thought they've never got any government support in terms of security, and there has been need for them to arm themselves. So I think there's need for a proactive, both a proactive and at this particular moment, a reactive approach. But there's need for a long-term solution in terms of ensuring that you've actually run a strict disarmament program, and not just disarmament, is that you have provided the required security support for the resources that these people live for.
what can they at least do to, you know, like identify these cases, because it seems like there is no enough clarity towards the people.
The public in this country have always been their accomplices. And to be very honest, a lot of these people who carry these heinous acts are our brothers and our fathers. And you know, by and large, I'm not saying that there are no women in this army, but these people are fed, you know, so it's a coordinated move whereby the public is involved in raising these people and in sheltering them, and they don't provide this kind of information to the state. And because I think by the end of the day, in certain areas, is that the relationship with the state is demented. It doesn't exist. So they don't see any need to provide this kind of information. And by the end of the day, the protection from the family unit comes with this father who carries a gun, who carries a long barrel weapon. The father who carries a long barrel weapon to protect the heritage of his family. So, and that's the only way he can grow wealth, is by raiding other people and killing them and defending a territory which doesn't necessarily belong to him. So I think, as I mentioned, is that there has to be a bipartisan approach whereby the government really gets to the ground and from a long term, you know, disarms these people, but even that provides that security. But even, you know, sometimes we say security is a state of mind. Is that you need to make sure that these residents, the poor people, feel safe without the need to carry arms. Because you're there as a state and you're working with them as a partner. So that's the way I'll say it. But if you look at crime in Kenya, I mean, the public and the society know where these people are.
What do you think would be the bigger catalyst? Because according to a survey that was conducted by the National Crime Research Center, they said that there are about 46 organized criminal gangs in Kenya. And the youth seem to be the big catalyst towards these groups. And some of the things that would lead them to do that would be maybe lack of employment and all that.
The question about lack of employment is that, and what I say is that a thug is a thug. By the end of the day, and a criminal is a criminal. By the end of the day, it is not the work of the state to create employment for the youth. The work of the state is to provide a thriving environment where the youth can create employment for themselves. So somebody who takes up a gun and goes to somebody else's house or waits for somebody else's car is a criminal, and by all means cannot give an excuse to the fact that I'm unemployed. Yeah, and the government has various schemes that there is that you can make a living out of it, and you can sell maize, you can do whatever it is. But by the end of the day, I think it's a culture issue. It's a culture issue whereby our youth believe in quick riches. And also, there's a huge imbalance in terms of resources, you know, and historical injustices which haven't been addressed. And if injustices are not being addressed, then a community will gather together and put themselves a mini army that they feel that they can fight for their rights. And also, if the question of resources is not properly addressed, then they will do the same and gather together an army that they think this is how we take law into our hands and protect ourselves against any injustices thereof, or cover ourselves against any bleeding of our resources, which they think. But I mean, and again, coming back to that area and coming back to crime, these are things that can be resolved, to be very honest. And you know, taking proactive approaches to insecurity. And insecurity has a basic root, and that basic root is basically looking at how human beings are evolving and existing in that particular culture, and it can be sorted out. But I mean, as at now, with the issue of Kapedo, is that the reactive approach is for the government to move in and show force and reclaim that territory, and run a strict disarmament program. And by the end of the day, they must work with this youth and with these people, just to ensure that these people, by the end of the day, agree to the fact that the law belongs to the state, and so is the land, and so are the resources and everything of the sort. And then the government needs to make them feel safe.
Well, that's all we had for you on Solutions Barabarani. Thanks a lot for keeping me company. Till next time, I've been your host, Agnes Maina.